This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, MICHAEL COVEL. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Before my guest today, I have a request. If you have not yet had the chance to check out my newest edition of Trend Following, expanded by literally 100%, and perhaps the 100% that was there still, that was rewritten nearly 80-90%. This is a beast of trend following work. I guarantee you will enjoy this book. Also, the audiobook version, now out 34 hours. Where else can you find such concentrated wisdom about a subject that we all need to know about? Check them both out at Amazon.com or available at bookstores everywhere. My guest today is Collin Seow. Collin is a Singaporean trader, investor, teacher, author. Collin is in the same headspace that I am in, trend following. His foundation is trend following. His thought process, his philosophy is trend following. And like too many good Singaporeans that I know, and unlike other areas of the world, Singapore absolutely gets trend following. I mean, it's one of the few places where I've had multiple articles about my world profiled in their biggest paper. My Turtle Trader book was on their bestsellers list for 13 weeks straight. I mean, seriously, how crazy is that? A trading book on the nonfiction bestsellers list. I mean, literally sandwiched between Greenspan and Mother Teresa. Just awesome. Just awesome. I'm always a fan of my old friends and new friends from Singapore. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Collin Seow. So, Collin, I know you saw this comment from Gary Vaynerchuk recently, and he said something to the effect of like, hey, you've got 18 hours of the day. What are you doing with yourself? Like, life success is only about hard work. And people have so many excuses, but Gary is spot on, isn't he? I mean, literally, we've got, well, whether you want to call it 12, 16, 18 hours per day, there is a lot of time of the day to get ahead. And anyone that has an excuse that says, I can't do it, they've already failed, haven't they?
Yeah, it's true. We really have so many hours after our standard, what we do every day. We have the rest of the hours. What are we spending for the rest of our free time? Are we reading the Facebook? Are we going online to watch YouTube video? What are we really spending our time on? Yeah, that's what really makes a difference. Do you spend your time improving yourself and taking care of yourself physically?
Have we been seduced, though, to think that Facebook and YouTube are actually, quality time that's moving us forward? We've been seduced to think this is helping us. It's not really helping us.
Yeah, I think the Facebook give us a very short information, because I think nowadays the attention span, they talk about the scarcity of attention right now. There's people are getting more and more. The attention span is getting shorter and shorter right now. I think that is one of the reasons why we're going to Facebook to consume very short news, but they don't really go into like a book where they really spend hours and hours understanding the thought behind the reasoning, or why the author actually wrote this book. I think the challenge right now is people don't want to think. They just want to let people do the thinking for them. A lot of processed information, but not enough critical thinking, I feel.
You refer to Facebook as having this kind of short bits of news or information. Could we even really call it more honestly just gossip most of the time?
Yeah, sometimes it feels good that when you post something on Facebook, you get a like or comment. I think it's good to stay in touch with the people around you. Let's say people who like myself, how I met you really is on Facebook. I've not really met you before, even though I've read so much about you. Recently, I just tidying out my books, and I saw one of your old book, and I said, wow, this is really an old book that I read when I was in my journey. And yeah, really it's a place where we keep in contact with our friends and even expanding our circles. But at the same time, for improving ourselves, I think Facebook may not be the best place to get more critical thinking. However, I do go to YouTube a lot. There are a lot of education video on YouTube. And the training, some of them is moving towards, rather than books, towards videos. I think video is really a good way to learn, because some of us are not so familiar or not comfortable with reading books. But video is really a good way to actually learn deep, actually.
You make a great point to counter what I'm saying. And that is true. Look, I mean, we all have to give credit to Mr. Zuckerberg, because you and I would not know each other without Facebook. And I can think of thousands of other people I would have never had contact without Facebook. So in terms of a communication tool, kind of an advanced telephone system, it's absolutely the best. I think your point about that is spot on. And also, you got to give credit to the Google guys, because I do also as well find pieces of information. I can think in my most recent book, I found some quotes from the physicist Richard Feynman, and he was talking about the scientific method. And I ended up using that piece of his lecture from the 1950s in my newest edition of Trend Following. So you're spot on about YouTube as well. I think for all of these tools, maybe the point you're getting at is that these tools have to be used in a very judicious, wise way. And if you go the easy kind of like let your mind wander way, then those tools don't help you. But if you use them in a correct way, they can really advance your life. I think that's your point.
Yes, I think when you go into the social media, or when you listen to music, there must be a purpose why you're doing. Are you planning to relax? Are you going on podcasts to listen to a certain information? I think more importantly is being purposeful, because on Facebook, there's so much news feed about gossips and other information that you may not want to follow. But if you want to search for things that are useful information, this example, my cable internet was broke down. My internet broke down, and I contacted the customer service. I couldn't get them, so I posted on Facebook. I said how to get this customer service. And interestingly, about 15 minutes later, the company actually called me. And there's something that is interesting, that instead of going to the direct customer service line through Facebook and all this information, that you can link up with the right people too. But data is being purposeful in your own, when you're going to social media, your own purpose on social media.
Well, you make a great point there, and what you just gave a great example too. And I hope people are really seeing the salient issue there, which is leverage. You try the regular customer service way, that doesn't work. You go onto Facebook, all of a sudden, those customer service people are like, hold on. A lot of people listen to this guy. we need to act faster, because we don't want his audience to think what he's thinking right now, which is he's getting bad customer service. And so it's interesting how leverage solves that problem faster.
Yes, I think one of the issue is influence. And I think the trust level on social media is also higher. So when there's a certain recommendation on Facebook and things like that, you tend to trust it more rather than just a very on the website. You tend to trust it less. So there's a level of trust because you trust your friends. Yeah, so that is the advantage of having social media and this all this information. Interestingly, I found my PA also through social media. I actually post up a job ad, a mentorship ad. Her father actually saw the ad and recommended her daughter to come for interview. And she has been working for me for she's Angeline, she's working for me for about 2 years plus already. So yeah, I do get a lot of positive things on Facebook and social media too.
So listen, I'm going to paint, you got to give me a few minutes here. I'm going to paint a long picture of Singapore, because a lot of people have never traveled there. It's an amazing place. And I want to kind of paint a picture from my perspective and then let you add to it. So, the first time I was in Singapore, I believe it was in early 2008. Yes, early 2008. I was interviewing Jim Rogers at his house in Singapore, the American investor. And Jim had famously moved there because he wanted his daughters to learn Mandarin. And now they're, I think, in their early teens. And apparently I saw Jim, I think the summer of 16, and he said they were winning contests. But that was my first experience with Singapore. And it struck me at the time that it was very hot, and I didn't have a lot of time then. But in 2008, it had really not hit its massive growth spurt. But when I came back in 2013, 2014, wow, this place is on fire. I can't really even give a great explanation as to what Singapore appears on the outside, but it's something like San Diego times 10 on steroids. That would be the way I would describe Singapore in terms of its architecture and its feel. It is super modern. It's the one place. Now, I'm not going to say this for every person because some of the taxi drivers in Singapore are interesting characters, but it's the one place you can go in Asia where you pretty much know that English is going to work. It's got this familiar feeling for Westerners. It's just an amazing place. And I would have to say over the years, some of my favorite entrepreneurs that I've met in the world are Singaporean. Because there's something as an American, at least if you're still attached to reality and you're an American entrepreneur, you got that cowboy feeling. The moment you get in contact with Singaporean entrepreneurs, it's like I joke with one of my buddies who's Singaporean. I say, my long lost brother from another mother. I mean, because there's this simpatico, there's this connection that I find when I speak with Singaporean entrepreneurs, Singaporean businessmen. So I really am a big fan, but I would love for you to speak to the success, because I know Singaporeans though don't necessarily, even though it's like the most millionaires per capita in the world, Singaporeans sometimes can downplay it and perhaps see the glass is half empty kind of thing versus realizing it's closer to full. But why don't you paint a picture from your perspective, the Singaporean perspective? What is some of that success thread that, for example, your former prime minister, that helped lay the groundwork with the country's founding in the 60s, Lee Kuan Yew? What would you say, this great leader that a lot of people probably don't know about, especially from America, what would you say some of the guiding principles that a leader like Lee Kuan Yew gave to Singaporeans that in turn, 30, 40, 50 years later, has helped with the furthering of its success?
I think one of the reasons why Singapore managed to prosper when the founding fathers came about is really to set about the rules and regulations. Maybe you have heard before, Singapore is a fine city. So it's like everything you get fined, you speed, you get fined, you talk too loud or something, like you still get fined, no? So it's a fine city. So when Singapore was set out in the beginning,
you're saying a fine city, meaning, so the audience understands, if you do some little things wrong, you're going to get a fine.
Yes.
A police officer might say, hey, you got to pay a ticket if you spit on the sidewalk.
That's right. Yeah, little things like that. You can't chew gum and things. You actually can chew gum. A lot of people don't understand. You actually can chew gum. It's just that you cannot sell chewing gum. That is the distinction over there. Yeah, but I think more importantly is, I think Singapore is, when it first started, the rules and regulation were very clear. So people know what they can do and what they cannot do. So then they bring the corruption level down. And I think that's one of the important points. The system is clear. So I just read somewhere about the blueprint of Singapore, even from tree to tree, how much the distance between tree to tree is being SOP. You actually know the distance between tree to tree. You know the distance from the sidewalk for each tree. You actually know everything. So everything is really systemized. So you really know how to succeed in this business. Some people feel, hey, rules will actually make you less entrepreneurial, but actually it's not true, because if you know the rules, you really can know how to play by the rules. And rules actually help to liberate you, because if imagine a world without rules, that means if corruption is the standard thing to do, then it really harms the people who really want to do well in business. Then it becomes who can corrupt more, and then the whole system just collapse. But if you know the rules clearly, this is how I succeed. If I do this, this is how I do it, then I will do it harder. I will make it work harder. I think one of the important points is having the system in place. Just like in trading, you need to have a system of how you get in and how you get out. You cannot be having just a very haphazard way of trading. Having a system really help you to remove your own emotion in trading. And when you are able to remove your own emotion in trading, you actually become better at it also.
Before we get into trading, though, I want to keep it at one more issue about Singapore, which I'm sure people listening to you right now, hearing your voice, they hear my voice. I sound like a very distinct, clear American English. To Singaporeans, you sound like very distinct, clear Singaporean English. And I think people need to keep in mind that most Singaporeans are going to have two languages at their disposal. And I think that's a really clear distinction. It's one of the few places in Asia where you're going to be able to find, people that are basically native English and native Mandarin speakers, which really adds to the muscle of Singapore's success.
Yes, I think that this is another thing that is quite unique in Singapore, that most people have two first language. You either can speak Mandarin and English or Mandarin and Malay, and some of them have even had three languages. This is one of the things about languages, and it helps to actually bridge people. So, like example, in China, and let's say a person in the US want to do a business in China. Right now, we were talking about, because of this language advantage that we have, become a bridge to China. If anybody from US want to go to China, or from China want to go to US.
Hey, that's no small bridge, because I know from firsthand experience, I can think of deals right now that I've not done with mainland Chinese business people, primarily because of language barrier. Really?
Yes.
I mean, it's a huge issue.
Yes. Another issue is also because of trust. Because if you can't speak the language and the system is not in place, you may get a little more wary. So, but because you feel like Singapore has a branding of being like a more trustworthy place, so the likelihood of you doing business with Singaporean is safer. In a way, our culture is a more trusting culture. So that is because we believe that most people won't. If you leave your bag on the table and you go get your food, you won't get lost usually.
I want to add something too. You made the comment about the rules, and I think I hope to the audience that's clear. But I'm sure some Americans, going back over a decade, they have memories of this story of this American teenager that got his butt caned for vandalism in Singapore. I have to say, having been to Singapore at least a dozen times, I've never felt anything except 100% comfortable, 100% safe. I've never felt anything unusual or odd, and I don't walk down the street feeling the need to cause problems. So in turn, I would never have a problem. And I think it's just it's one of those things where I think sometimes the headlines in the papers, for people that don't know, perhaps sound more ominous, but it couldn't be any farther than the truth, in my opinion.
Yes, actually, Singapore is one of the safest place to be. If you can actually walk along, I don't know whether you've been to like the underbelly of Singapore, like in Geylang, where the red light district is and things like that. You can actually walk.
Why would I be in the red light district? Actually, is this some kind of an accusation? I don't know anything about this.
No, but there is also good food there. There's also good food there. Yeah, so it's an interesting place where on the even lanes are all the red light district. On the odd lanes are all the good food, where we have all the street food over there. That is, and interestingly, there's a lot of people even staying over there in this red light district. So it's really one of the safest place. Actually, even if you walk at 2-3 a.m., you will still feel safe. Another thing about having rules is when you know that there's rules, you will know that you won't get it robbed, or you will not likely get pickpocket and things like that. So this is things that rules that will help you. Yeah. So for those Americans out there that think that Singapore is a very rule-based country, is really not true. In fact, I think some of I don't go a lot, but some of our night spot even open until 6 a.m. in the morning. Yes. It's really, if you want to have fun, you really can have fun here. But
Look, I got to tell you, landing in Singapore and going through international customs for the first time in one of those big international halls at the airport is one of the nicest landing experiences that exist in the world, period, hands down. I've traveled a lot, and it's just one of those nicest experiences, really. Before I keep trying to praise Singapore too much, I'm a big fan. People can tell that. Let me move into something that you've been kind of hinting at with Singaporean society, which is this systematic thinking. I have seen in my 5 years of spending a lot of time in Asia, I have seen that generally, and beyond just Singapore, Asian people from Beijing to Bangkok to KL to Ho Chi Minh City, there seems to be an appreciation, an understanding, an acceptance of the systematic type of trading, the technical type of trading, the trend following type of trading that you and I are involved in. There seems to be an acceptance of that across Asian culture that's different, in my opinion, than the States and perhaps Europe. Obviously, some of the biggest trend following traders have come out of the States, out of Europe. So there's acceptance there. But I find on the retail side with individual traders, it seems like more people in Asia are willing to accept the idea of trading systems and technical indicators. Whereas in America, I think people still want to reach for and try to emulate Warren Buffett instead.
Yes, talk about Warren Buffett. I have read through all the books about Warren Buffett and how he invests. And personally, for myself, over the last more than 20 years ago, I've tried his style. And personally, it didn't work for me. Whatever I buy that I thought to be low actually went lower. I actually changed my style, went to technical analysis. I took my CFTE, be a chart.
But hold on. How did that make you feel? You like me, you're a young guy. You read about Warren Buffett. This is clearly the direction to go. Value. This guy's been doing it for decades. And then you get into it and you're kind of like, you have this moment of like, hold on. You mean there's another way?
Yeah.
Right. It's a really interesting feeling to have that eye-opening experience of like, hold on, there's another way.
Yes, I think when especially for new traders, their logic is who is the richest man in the world? Warren Buffett. They are who are they? They are actually value investors. They actually what is their approach towards investing? Buying through value investing. So they look for companies that are value. So they assume that since he's the richest man in the world, if I follow his method, I'll be correct. But when you really go and apply some of the methods or some of the way he value company and apply it to your real life, it may not work that well. Yeah, because a lot of things that he has access to the management, he can speak to the CEO, he buy the business, he can even influence, when he will buy a business, because he's buying the business, he's actually influence the business itself. So these are the impact that one that's outside or retail can never see, because they thought that just by following his method of valuing a stock, you will get his results, which is not true. Because a lot of times when we talk about this comparative strength, there is certain, when the market is moving towards a certain direction, those stocks that are valuable or so-called undervalued can remain valuable or even more undervalued. That means if the price will continue to drop. Just like last year when oil price was down, people are saying that, these are oil stocks, oil services are good. So they started to invest in those oil stocks because they thought it was at cheap price. But what happened is some of them eventually went bust. Some of them went to trouble because of taking too much loan. So you really don't understand that you can't really just use valuation or PE ratio and some of this to decide what to buy. Just because it's cheap, it doesn't mean that the price will rise. Yeah, that is a very important distinction. A lot of these analysts or these CFAs of them, what do they analyze? They usually analyze on the balance sheet. They do some projection. They do some models, and from this, they actually give you the target price or whether to buy or sell a certain stock. But is it really true? Because a lot of times when they are doing is what they are researching is the past, and when you really go and buy the stock, a lot of times you are actually buying assumptions. and it may not even hit the target price, or when they give a buy call, the price may even drop further. Yeah, so there's some challenges of a retail investor if you just think that Warren Buffett way is the way.
Well, you're leading to where the thrust of our conversation today, which is if, and you make the good case for why it's not, if it's not a great idea to try to model Warren Buffett, because the reality is you don't have a holding company of insurance companies that spin off cash, and for all the other reasons you mentioned, and for the fact that who in the world can possibly know all of the fundamentals for anything. And that gets back to my bigger point, which is what my experience has shown me, is that I find people over across Asia are willing to accept the idea that let's put aside value, let's put aside the fundamentals, and let's just look at what the price currently is showing us right now, and let's make our decisions based off price movement as opposed to all this other stuff. And I think once people allow their minds to wrap around that, life becomes a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yes, and I think one of the reasons why maybe people in Asia are easier to accept all this is because they are more, I feel they're more rule-based. We tell them certain things to do A, B, C, more systematic. They will tend to do A, B, C and follow the system. Some people may not be used to this way of actually trading or investing. Yeah. So, yes, being systematic is actually very important part. Yeah.
So speak to price though. Let's get right into the nitty gritty. If someone's going to be systematic, the best way to be systematic is to have not a lot of things you're following. In fact, if you're going to be systematic, if you're only following one variable, for example, price action, the idea of being systematic really becomes doable, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I think one of the point about being systematic is, number one, when you look at price, if the stock market can when, let's say example, when oil price is down, it doesn't mean that all the stocks are down. There may be stocks that benefit from lower oil prices, they are down. So you can actually look from the price over the last 1 month, over the last 3 months. If they are benefiting from lower oil prices, the stock price will usually climb. So these are what we call comparatively stronger stocks. Similarly, there will be weak stocks like oil services or oil drillers. They will be affected from the low oil prices, and the stock price will actually drop. So what I did is I used a comparative scan. I will actually take a snapshot of the last 1 month of every stock in the market, and then measure their relative strength. And from there, I will rank it from the strongest to the weakest. Then from there, I will know which are the strong sectors, which are the strong stocks that are happening right now, and which are the weak stocks. Like example, if interest rate were to rise, then what are the stocks? Like example, over the last 1 year, the banking sector has been doing well. It's something that we already know that interest rate is rising. So if it continue to rise, then banking or financial sector will continue to do well because of their net interest margin. And there will be certain stocks that are not doing well. Example, healthcare or drug manufacturing, if they are not doing well, maybe certain policies that will affect these companies. So when you look at price, what I did is not just looking at price on its own, but looking at price holistically as a big picture in the whole stock market. Where is that price?
What you're really getting at there with that comment, though, is it, from my perspective, and I think the academic research backs this up, there's two accepted forms or two proven forms of momentum, two forms of momentum trading. You have basically what you're describing, the relative strength perspective of momentum. And then you have kind of, in my world, which is also your world too, you have the trend following form of momentum.
That's right.
So it's two different types of momentum, but they've both been accepted in the trading community.
Agree. Yeah, in fact, it's a type of trend following, because follow the trend, but you follow the trend on the bigger picture, and not just when you talk about what to buy, not just looking at a particular stock price when they rise, but why is it rising? So if, let's say, a certain sector is rising, you understand why is it rising. Then from there,
why is it rising in terms of a relative strength perspective?
That's right. Yeah. And then from there, you can use your whatever methods or whatever systems to apply to that particular stocks. So they come to my next part, which is the when to buy, how to actually get in. When they come to when to buy, you actually need a system to apply to the strongest stock. Then that you have a higher chance of being successful.
We can only go so far in a conversation in less than an hour, but it's worth considering for people out there to investigate further, because it is two very, even though they're both momentum, even though they're both price action based, even though they both can be systematic, the relative strength and trend following perspective are different perspectives. They can complement each other, but they can also be standalones that people can go down either direction.
Yes.
Let me bring you into a risk management aspect of this. Recently, I saw this. I can't remember if it was on your Facebook or your Twitter feed. You quoted from Paul Tudor Jones, the famous trader, and he's so legendary. And people, they see a few lines of his over the years, and they try to make assumptions and predictions about his style of trading. I will point out that in a recent Anthony Robbins book, Jones pointed out how much he is a believer in price action, and pointed out his use of moving averages, which is kind of hint about his style. But the comment that you posted, which I really liked the reminder of, which was basically, I'm paraphrasing a little bit from Paul Tudor Jones, don't focus on making money, focus on protecting what you have. Boy, that's so huge, right? I mean, if you just focus on protecting what you have, you actually make money. It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
In fact, in my research, a lot of time when we backtest a certain system, it's not just about making money. It's not just about returns. It's really about making less losses. So what are your biggest losses? Then is there any way to filter out all these losses? So if you are working on a system and you can filter out all the losses, then what remains are the good results. That is my approach towards system designing when we talk about algo trading. So that is an important part of money management, to protect what you have, and from protecting what you have, the rewards or the returns will actually take care of themselves.
Let me let you expand on that. Let's assume that you're in front of a classroom, 100 students, and they're being introduced to the idea of systems trading for the first time. And you're getting them to consider that they're going to be trading a portfolio of markets. Let's say they're going to be tracking 30 markets. And you get down to the conversation of risk management. It's really interesting what happens when people are forced to consider, okay, I've got my trading signal. I'm going to put my trade on. How much do I risk on this trade, given the whole of my portfolio, given how much money I have? And that idea of picking a number, a certain percentage that you're willing to risk, that you're willing to lose on a trade, that's not necessarily intuitive for new traders, is it?
Yes, it's just like when we talk about trading, there's for myself, there are two areas that I look at. One is position trading, which is a bit longer term trading. Is you can hold from weeks to months, sometimes even years. And then there's swing trading, which is a shorter term kind of trading. So for the shorter term kind of trading, it's like a 5 days kind of trade. So usually recommend from the textbook about 2% of your portfolio. So every time you do a trade, you're risking 2% of your total portfolio. And every trade comes with what we call the two P's. The probability, that means after you enter a position, what is the chance that you will hit your target? And the second one is after you enter a trade, what is the chance that you will hit your stop loss? So that's what we call the probability trade, the first P. The second P is really the payoff ratio. When you enter a position, what is your returns? What's the possible returns? And what is your possible loss? So you should have a positive payoff ratio too. So from the probability and payoff ratio, every time you just take a 2% risk, over time, you have no choice but just to make money, because the expectancy will be on your side.
Well, that expectancy, I mean, that gets to another issue that many new traders, frankly, experienced traders, the idea of having an expectancy, knowing what on average you can expect to make playing the game, and this is a game, playing the game over the long term, what you can mathematically work out will be your edge. I mean, if you don't have your edge, how the hell are you supposed to play the game?
That's right. Another distinction I have, even with trading, is really, why do you need a system? Sometimes even we have, like we read from books, we have a 70% hit rate strategy with positive expectancy. The person may not have the results that this strategy teach. Why is it so? Because the emotions come into play too. When your trading is not systematic, your emotions come into play too. So once you are more systematic, you have rules that are set by, then your trading become more systematic and your emotions actually drop and you're able to follow the system. Then over time, mathematically, you're more likely to succeed. So having a system actually is a key part, not just having a positive expectancy, because one need to follow the system too.
I had an experience a few years ago. I was in Beijing and I was speaking to a very large crowd. It was being translated because it was non-English speakers. It was over 1,000 people. And the interesting experience that I had was I was giving a trend following presentation and I started with really laying the psychological foundation, really laying how important that is. Because look, once you have your system, once you have your rules, once you believe in it, once you have your edge, then 90% of the success, or maybe 95% of the success, is the 6 inches between your ears. I mean, really, it's all mental at that point in time. And I was trying to lay that foundation, and I'm curious if you have any comment on this, but the audience got a little restless because what they really wanted, and you have talked about this so far, what they really wanted was they felt like that maybe that was a distraction. The psychological stuff was a distraction. And they were kind of like, hey, just give me the system. If I have the system, I'll be successful. And I think that's one of the tricks with these systems is because, Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize, a book that he wrote that you can find in almost every airport, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. I mean, that foundation, that mental foundation, you can have all the systems in the world. You can have all the understanding of expectancy. You can know how much you're going to risk. But if the psychological part is not there, and if you've not thought it through in crunch time, when something goes wrong, boy, it's going to be a problem, isn't it?
Yes. In fact, I agree with you. Really having the right psychology is so important. In our course, we actually talk about precession. So as a trader, instead of focusing on profits, which most people say, how much money am I going to make this year? Instead of focusing on profit, you focus on keeping your trading journal, keeping good records. So when you focus on keeping good records and being a good trader, profits is a result of doing the right things. It's a effect of precession. You don't do it directly, but you focus on your trade plan. You focus on writing the journal. You focus on being a good trader. And as a result of doing this, let's say, example, you set a target of, let's say, I want to have 100 good trades. That means you follow your trade plan and keep good records, 100 good trades. And then after you did 100 good trades, the results is profits. Yeah, because in the market, it's just random. You can't actually predict how much profit you're going to make. So this is what we talk about in our course about precession also.
I've got in front of me in my hand, I'm holding The Systematic Trader by Collin Seow. And page 166, something that I like that people will have to check out. It's a relatively simple little table. What you got, the personality test, volume and frequency along the axes, and investor, gambler, hobbyist, scalper. I like that thinking, though. I like that the idea of thinking in terms of volume of trades, frequency of trades, and how you've done that. I think it's a really important point. And it gets right back to the idea of thinking about the psychology, frankly, first. I mean, a lot of people are still not going to want to do that. Maybe even myself, I think back to the first time I understood trend following, I probably wasn't thinking about the psychological side. I was probably thinking, how does this work? What's the exact system? What's the math? What's the numbers? And then it takes a little bit of time to kind of take a step back and realize, okay, there's many pieces to this puzzle.
Yes. Same as me, actually. When I first started, I was so interested in the setups. I was reading what is the correct or the most profitable strategy. But at the end of the day, it's not just about strategy. It's really about having the right mindset. But the interesting thing is, tell you a story that when we do courses on like trading setup, there are a lot of participants. But when we talk about psychology, no one is interested. I don't know why, but psychology is so important in trading. Yeah. In fact, I think it's more than 50% in trading.
Taking this a step further on the psychology, I've noticed across your work, you are, like myself, you're very fond of taking some of the great lines, the great quotes from many of the trend following traders. You've really been inspired by trend following over your career.
Yes.
Who would you think, off the top of your head, your favorite quotable trend following trader?
Can I say Michael Coveel?
What's funny is when you say that, it's like the guys that were in the Market Wizards books, these really legendary traders. They gave us all these great lines. I think what I've done in my career is been able to build off what they put together and maybe expand on it and connect it. But so much of what was laid down 30, 40 years ago by the trend following greats, that stuff's timeless. It doesn't go away. That's why Jack Schwager's book, Market Wizards, is still a must read in 2017. I mean, yeah, there might be some sections by some of the traders that are not as important, but Bruce Kovner, Larry Hite, Ed Seykota, Richard Dennis, that stuff's timeless.
That's right. I mean, what I've learned over the years is really through reading all these books. So for me, Market Wizard is more like you can't really find a specific strategy over there, but it's like an inspirational book for traders. When you read, really get inspired and really say, hey, it's possible to make money from the market. Yeah, so that is for me. When I read that book, I was really inspired that there are people that have this kind of trading records.
Hey, Collin, let me ask you a question about people today. I'm curious. You teach a lot of people, different age ranges. I mean, I'm in my 40s, and I've had a chance to observe people in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s from my perch in my world. But I'm curious if you have any perspective for younger people today coming along, because I do see differences in generations. I do see differences in perspectives. I do see in society across the world today more of a sense of entitlement. And this sense of entitlement doesn't necessarily, a sense of entitlement never helps anyone to get ahead. But how do those people that perhaps have this sense of entitlement, how can they have a more clearer vision of how much of a problem that is? Because look, if you're going through life feeling entitled, there's a very good chance you're not going to get the success you want.
Yeah. Actually, I do have some young and rich friends. I think one of the biggest challenge they have, and they may not see it as a challenge because they have so much money to spend, is maybe they don't find their purpose in life. They are like going party after party, and the money, they can't finish spending all the money. So when you talk to them about success, they say, come on, I have already achieved success. But these are like second generation people from the second generation where the father actually worked very, very hard to build that success. But I think really is coming back is what is your purpose? What is the purpose of being here on earth? Like for myself, I feel that it's not just about being a good trader. It's not just about making more money. That is part of the equation, because I right now have a full-time person that actually manages this. More importantly is what you want to do with your life. I think that is very important. For myself, I feel that building a community of traders is very important. I feel that is where you actually have the maximum impact in the marketplace. So I just focus on that, and having a purpose really will drive you towards what you want to do every day. That you won't feel you're tired, you don't feel that you deserve more rest and things like that. But really, when you feel that you're on purpose, you feel happier doing what you're doing. At the same time, people will also be encouraged or follow you towards building this vision together. Yeah, so I think for younger generation, it's really to ask yourself, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to just party, and then when you're like 40, 50 and then continue partying? You can, but is there any, and then what is it about, When you do that, then you really can find your significance, I would say.
So, you lay out that perspective, you give that great Zen master perspective. And don't kick my butt if I pronounce this wrong, but it's a Singaporean term. I would like for you to define it and contrast it. Let people outside of Singapore know what it is. And I believe it's unique to Singapore, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But the concept of kiasu?
Kiasu, okay. Yeah.
So you just gave this great perspective about finding your life calling, but in this really successful country that you live in, the competitiveness to simply perhaps kind of be number one, kind of be the first person to have the newest thing. There's this other perspective that people have that probably isn't the healthiest perspective, is it?
Yes. Interestingly, when you talk about kiasu, is a term that we use, but use less nowadays, because the word kiasu, what it means is afraid of losing. You're afraid of losing because of this kiasu mentality. They always work harder. They always are the first. They always want to be the first. Yeah. So this is the kiasu mentality. But at the same time, is having a purpose of being kiasu. Why are you kiasu? That's the thing.
Well, it's funny though. The interesting idea of being afraid of losing. When you have a systematic approach to trading, you already know from the beginning you're going to have losses. So it's an interesting process here that for any trader, whether they're Singaporean, American, European, it doesn't make a difference. When you start off as a systematic trader, you know from the beginning you're going to have losses. You know from the beginning you are not going to make money in a straight line up. That's impossible.
That's right. I think one of the approach towards a mentality is when you approach a trade, don't always, like example, when people are new, they always think when they enter a trade, they are likely to make money. So the next question after they enter a trade is, when do I sell? I think the important thing is to enter a trade, you need to, like a Zenmaster, 50-50. First thing to ask is, where is my stop loss? How do I take care of my downside? From there, then the upside can take care of itself. Yeah, so that is important part of psychology of protecting your profit and really how you approach trading rather than just being very optimistic about the whole trade.
Collin, good chat today. Let me read the title of the newest book, The Systematic Trader: How I Turned a $250,000 debt into profits through stock trading. People can pick this up everywhere. They can check you out. Where is the best website for people to go to check you out?
I think is my blog. You can go to Collin Seow, COLLINSEOW.com. So that is the best place to look at what I do. Yeah. So over there, you can actually sign up for there's a gift over there. You can actually subscribe to the newsletter that I actually every week I actually post up a new blog on the markets. I do have guest bloggers too. That's the best place to actually get in contact with me.
Hey, also, I know you wanted to mention it, but you're giving away a system. You were giving a link. What was that link again?
Oh, yes. For your podcast, people who are listening to this podcast, the URL is bit.ly/Collin's strategy.
Collins strategy.
Yes. Yeah, so that's the place where you actually can download a video. It's a video course, about 20 minutes. You can actually go through this video. It's about a particular setup about swing trading, how we enter and exit the market using this strategy.
Hey, I should tell the audience something kind of fun about our conversation. It only took us like a week to put together, considering we're only about an hour and a half flight away from each other, not that far away from each other. And I do calls to the States and Europe all the time, no problem. But you and I could not get connected for the life of us across Skype. Even though technology is great, it's still not perfect yet, is it?
Yeah, I think that day, Michael, I think we maybe
they didn't want us to talk that day. They didn't want us to talk. Yeah, whoever they is.
It just didn't work. Yeah. So yeah, but it was a good experience and talking to you today.
Yeah, it was fun. I appreciate it, Collin. Hopefully, I will catch up with you in either somewhere across Asia, probably Singapore.
Yes, I hope to see you here in Singapore. Hope to invite you to come and speak to our audience here.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in
up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.